Hi and welcome to episode 6, which is all about building your power team. So who should be in my power team? So I'm not going to go into these in any great detail, but as you can see from the slide, there's quite a lot of different people and teams that need to be in your power team. So some examples could be solicitors and accountants. Within your everyday life, you may already have dealings with these sorts of people, but just to know in property, you need quite specialist people if you're doing this seriously and on a long-term basis. The accountant and solicitor that we use for our buy-to-lets are not the people or the companies that we would use to purchase our residential property. We've also got people like your builders, which we'll speak about later, property sourcers, letting agents, other property specialists and angel investors, and brokers as well. We've got an insurance broker and also a broker we use for our buy-to-let mortgages. Again, not people who we would have dealt with before for a residential property. How do I find them? So thinking back to the start of our property investing, really one of the key ways that we found a lot of our power team was through word of mouth. If you think of anything, it's always good to go and seek out who's doing something better than you and ask them how did they do it or who did they use, and that's essentially what we did at the start, and it's proved very useful because a lot of the people within our power team that we sought out through recommendations from more experienced property investors were actually still using. Secondly, using searches online and social media. So for example, some of the sites like Trusted Trader and some Facebook groups proved really helpful for us. And again, it's things like that that we use as checkers still now. Letting agents are another useful place to get recommendations through. If you think about it, they're using a lot of builders and gardeners and general handymen to do a lot of the work and the maintenance in the properties that they manage. So if you know a letting agent that you're going to potentially use if you've not bought anything yet, or if you've maybe got one or two properties through and you manage them through a letting agent, go and speak to the letting agent. They'll be more than happy, like 99% of the time, to tell you who it is that they use, particularly if you're going to let that property out through them. In terms of some top tips for recruiting builders, we've compiled 5 tips for you today. Builders are one of the critical pieces of the puzzle for your power team, because at the end of the day, if you think about it, for the cost of the property that you're buying, apart from physically paying the money to buy the property, the cost that you're going to pay your builders to refurb it for a basic buy-to-let refurb is probably the second highest cost that you'll have. If I think back to the first one we bought it for about 41,000. We had to spend about 15-16 grand doing it up, and we had to do a lot to it, albeit it was still a basic refurb. But it makes your builder really critical. If you get it wrong, it can basically like screw up your numbers completely. So number 1 in our top tips for recruiting your builders is validating the credibility of them. So that could be done through things like checking the trade bodies that they say they're signed up to, checking company's house and checking that the directors who they say they are and it's a live company, but also checking testimonials. Similar to testimonials, ask your builder to show you their previous work. So that could be having a look at pictures of work that they've previously done, and also if they're credible, they should want to share it. Ask for, if you want, ask to speak to customers that they've done work for previously. If a builder has done a really good job and they're super proud of it, then I don't understand why they would say no to you. If it's going to help them win one and potentially more jobs off the back of that. When I think about the builder that we used on day one, we've actually done more work with them since then, so it's been a proper relationship grown over time. But also, I know like so many other jobs that he's got through recommendations that I've given to other like-minded property investors, just purely because I completely trust them on my jobs. Number 3 is asking social communities. Now that could be closed Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, whatever it may be that you're part of. If there are like-minded and potentially more experienced property investors on there, ask them for recommendations. People generally will want to help. And if you're like me, like I believe, like if you help somebody and make their life easier, whether it be through giving recommendations or something similar, you're going to get that back tenfold. So for example, 2 weeks ago at a networking event, a girl basically went out her way to cross the room to come and speak to me, to thank me for helping her out. She had a question about asbestos in a property that she owned, and I know a really credible asbestos company that could help her. So I basically gave her that contact, and she could not have been so thankful for that contact, because it really helped her out a sticky situation. And now I know that if I'm looking for something, if I post a question about whatever it may be, if she knew the answer to that question or was able to point me in the right direction, she would definitely go out her way to do that because I've helped her. Number 4, get a few quotes. Going back to particularly in our early days, this is extremely crucial for a few different reasons. So one is obviously to get a gauge on what is the right price for the job that you're looking to quote. Secondly though, it also allows you to understand what type of person your builder is. So would they give you ideas, say maybe if you're asking for something that's actually of a higher spec than what it needs to be for your target market, your builder should feel comfortable to tell you that and not just be looking to get every single penny out of you possible just because it helps line their pockets. But also thirdly as well, when you're getting these quotes, particularly starting out, you're actually meeting with the builder face to face. In our first property, I met 3 builders and I took them round the property myself. I'd written out what exactly I thought needed done, and I really used that to test and see whether I got on with the builder. They seemed credible, they seemed trustworthy to me, but also they weren't afraid to debate with me what they thought was right. And also they weren't trying to obviously get every penny out of me, so it kind of helps you in a few different ways. Lastly but not least, agree timescales with your builder and the requirements in writing. That could just simply be on email, but make sure you get it written down. I've heard a lot of stories of builders coming in at the end with really high costs that basically were never discussed. But if you don't have anything written down or a contract, then what have you got to go back on? You've really only got what you said versus what they said, which really isn't really good enough when you're in a professional environment. This includes payment terms and timescales. I cannot stress how important this is. Timescales wise, I've heard people basically where they're moaning that their builder's taking 8 weeks or they're just not getting round to completing the job. But if you didn't have anything written down or agreed up front, then how do you expect somebody to work to a timescale that they don't know what the timescale is? If you give somebody 4 weeks, they'll probably take 4 weeks if they've agreed to up front. If you tell them, oh, roughly about 2 months, they'll probably take 3. So give them a clear timescale that you can both agree to and stick to it. Keep on them and check up every week to make sure that they're going to stick to it. With anything like this, there's always something that will crop up, and to be honest, it's always something that crops up that I wouldn't have been able to plan for in every single job that I do. But because we add just a little bit of fat on at the end of it that I don't tell my builder, then it always finishes in a kind of respectable time frame that I'd generally be happy with. In terms of payment terms, one important point is the deposit. Not all builders ask for deposit, but the majority will do. And although I'm very comfortable paying that deposit, just be aware of some red flags. If a builder's asking for example, 75%, that would set red alarm bells off for me, indicating that maybe they're not very good with their cash flow. They could just be starting out, but if that's the case, then maybe offer to pay for the materials yourself, and then it's just really their time outlay that they're putting in. But be very wary if they're asking for high deposits. I've heard of a few stories whereby people have trusted their builder, paid high deposits, and ended up losing money because of it. So yeah, just be very careful. So that is 5 tips for recruiting builders, and hopefully that has given you some good ideas about what you would do. And that brings us to the end of episode 6. So thanks very much for listening to me, and look forward to speaking to you in a future episode. Good night for now.